David Bowie is often referred to as the chameleon of pop music, and for good reason. Throughout his career, he continuously reinvented himself, both in image and in sound. Each of these phases represents a distinct chapter in a remarkably artistic and creative life. With the start of this artist arc, we'll take a deeper look into the life of David Bowie to further unravel his music and perhaps even more importantly, his identity. Because sometimes Bowie didn't just change himself, he even changed the way he was presented to the world. Hello, and welcome to a brand new episode of We're Only in It for the Music, a YouTube series that takes you through the musical universe, from ABBA to Zappa and everything in between and beyond. Click the like and subscribe buttons, and hit the notification bell so you'll never miss an episode. But enough of that, never mind the bollocks. We're only in it for the music. In Look What I Found, I share some of the most interesting discoveries from my endless search for albums and singles with a story to tell. And this time, that story is anything but straightforward. Because when it comes to David Bowie's The Man Who Sold the World, I didn't find just one, but multiple versions, each with a completely different face. So let's dive in. Bowie's body of work is vast. And within his discography, especially on vinyl, there's a lot out there that collectors would love to get their hands on. If you can even find it in the wild, and if you can even afford it. But today, we're looking at something very special. The different faces of Bowie's third album, The Man Who Sold the World. The album was recorded between April and May 1970 at Trident Studios in London. And later that year, it was released in the United States on the Mercury label. But what really makes this album unique is that no one seemed to agree on what it should look like. Not one cover, not two, but 4 different identities for the same album. The first version appeared in 1970 in the US, a striking, almost comic-style cover. Designed by Michael J. Weller, a friend of Bowie, we see a cowboy, based on a photograph of John Wayne standing in front of Cane Hill Hospital, a place with personal significance. Bowie's half-brother Terry was a patient there. The design was meant to capture the dark, foreboding tone of the album, but at the same time, it feels strangely distant. This isn't Bowie. This is an interpretation of him. Even the title wasn't what he wanted. Bowie originally wanted to call the album Metrobolist.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
The label had other ideas, but this is where it gets really interesting.
Nerd alert!
Because this cover is one of the most counterfeited Bowie releases out there. And if you don't know what to look for, you'll almost certainly get it wrong. There are 2 checks you can always rely on. Check 1. Dead wax. Take a look at the runout, the area between the label and the grooves. On an original pressing, the matrix numbers are machine stamped. On counterfeits, they're hand etched. Check 2. Back cover. On the back, there's a speech bubble that reads, "Oh, by Jingo." Look at the space between that bubble and the final line of the Supermen. On an original, it's roughly the height of one line of text. On a counterfeit, that space is noticeably larger. Subtle, but crucial. So Bowie thought, let's do something different. I have an idea. I'll be lying on a chaise longue, wearing a dress.
I'm sorry, Dave.
And yet, it happened. In 1971, the album was released in the UK with a completely different cover. Bowie, photographed by Keith McMillan, wearing a satin man's dress designed by Michael Fish. The pose? Inspired by Dante Gabriel Rossetti. This wasn't just a cover anymore. This was a statement. And there's another detail that drives collectors crazy. On some original pressings, producer Tony Visconti's name is misspelled Tunny Visconti, a small mistake, but exactly the kind of thing that makes this version highly sought after. And in a nice bit of pop culture crossover, this exact version even shows up in the TV adaptation of High Fidelity.
An original pressing of The Man Who Sold the World with the drag cover and the misspelled Tony Visconti credit. Holy shit, it's in perfect condition. I've wanted one of these since the 8th grade. This is the best collection I've ever seen.
In Germany, in 1971, yet another interpretation appeared. A surreal cover, featuring a winged creature, part Bowie, part fantasy figure, flicking the earth away. This version was released as a fold-out sleeve, a cover that opens up completely, into a circular composition. Inside, there's an inner sleeve with the song lyrics. And once again, watch out for counterfeits. On genuine copies, the matrix numbers are machine-stamped. On counterfeits, they're hand-etched. Many unofficial reissues also come as picture discs or colored vinyl. Yeah, this is where it gets nerdy again. And there's one more detail. At the end of the Superman, you can hear a short piece of Savior Machine, most likely how it was originally intended, but only fully audible on this version. In 1972, the album got yet another new face, Bowie as Ziggy Stardust, captured in an iconic action pose, based on a pose by Freddie Beretti, and this version came with an extra surprise. Inside, a poster. Bowie, not just on the cover, but on your wall. But why are these versions so sought after? Low production numbers, label confusion, and an artist still shaping his identity. 4 covers, 4 hunts, 4 investments. For a complete set, you'd almost have to sell your house. Or better yet, to buy all 4, you'd have to sell the world. Ironically, many of these records end up sitting untouched on a shelf. While musically, there's plenty to discover and enjoy here. At the time of its release, none of the songs were issued as proper singles, although a few promo and later releases do exist, such as All the Mad Men and a promo of Running Gun Blues. The title track is the most well-known. Helped along by versions from Lulu and Nirvana. But this album also marks the beginning of Bowie's true artistic growth, still searching, but full of potential. Personally, my favorite is the black and white Ziggy cover. But I'm curious, which version would you choose? And that was Look What I've Found. That was The Man Who Sold the World. And that was Chapter 1 of the David Bowie artist arc. Next week, we'll dive into Bowie's Berlin period with Eno and Iggy. Do you have a favorite version of The Man Who Sold the World? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to vote in the poll over on the Community tab, so you can play along. You can also listen to the highlights from The Man Who Sold the World in the Spotify playlist, featuring all the music from this series. Follow the channel on social media, Facebook and Instagram for updates, because I will follow you, if you follow me. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode. Thanks for watching, see you next time, and in the meantime, drop the needle, press play, and remember, we're only in it for the music.